Hi, and welcome to another APAC office hours from the Android Developer Relations team. Your host for today is going to be Rajdeep. Over to you, Rajdeep.
Okay, thanks, Ankur. Hi, everybody. We are again excited to have this hangout where we are going to answer questions which have been posted on Moderator by developers across the world. This time we have around 17 questions. So I'll hand it over to Ankur to take up the first question. Ankur, over to you.
Thanks, Rajdeep. So for question number one, which is...
Can you introduce yourself first and then take up the question?
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Yes, let's do the introductions. So hi, I'm Ankur Cotwell, and I'm part of the Android Developer Relations team, and I'm based in Sydney. Over to you guys.
Hi, I'm Anirudh, and I'm based out of Hyderabad.
Yeah, hi, Rajdeep, based out of Hyderabad.
This is Ryosuke, based in Tokyo.
Okay, cool. So Ankur, you can start now.
Yeah, we'll have another colleague of ours joining us shortly, Tony Chan, who's based out of Hong Kong. Okay, so question number one, and we're going off the moderator link, which is posted on the thread. So if you have any questions, please add them now. We try and give you guys opportunities even beforehand. So as Rajdeep says, we have a few questions today. So question number one, and I don't know how to pronounce this, but I think Xamarin ported Android source to C#, and they're reporting a huge performance boost. So it's a split question. Does that mean the Dalvik VM is inefficient? Can I get even better performance than that using the NDK? So my understanding of what the team at Xamarin have achieved is basically allowing you to develop your apps on C#, which is great. It's quite innovative, and it's good to see more languages supported by the community. There are, of course, always trade-offs. If you look at it purely from a performance point of view, and in their post they said that it's faster than developing for Java in terms of runtime performance. I don't know how accurate those claims are, but assuming they are, that's one way to look at it. The other way that I guess you should look at it is, how are the developer tools? Are you going to be as productive using those sets of developer tools as opposed to what you have today with the combination of Eclipse and Java, or IntelliJ and Java? So it's more than just performance. I mean, if we were looking purely from a performance point of view, NDK gives tons of performance because you're writing in C, but the developer productivity is not as high. So it's great to see that C# or Mono is an alternative for Android, and I think our advice is basically pick the tool that suits you best.
Okay, cool, Ankur. So Tony also has joined us. Who's
Hi everyone.
Yeah, Taiwan. And so our next question is about C2DM messaging and OAuth. So I'll hand it over to Anirudh.
Right. So the question is, now when the client login authentication is deprecated, should we use OAuth 2.0 for C2DM messaging? Would be great if you have an example here to get an auth token with OAuth to use with C2DM messaging. So the answer to this is yes, we know C2DM is being deprecated, and it's probably not the best way to authenticate. But for now, that's the only solution we have, is to use client login to get the tokens required for pushing your messages. But we are also working on a better, a more robust authentication model. But for now, that's the only way you have is client login. Also note that in this case, you're not using user's credential because the user is already authenticated on the phone. It's the developer who's using the C2DM account credentials to get the token for pushing the message.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thanks, Anirudh. Next question is again for Anirudh. This is on graphic UI editor.
So the question is, last week my question was answered, advising me not to use the graphic UI editor because of bugs, which made me think, how is the workflow like with UI designers on the team? Should I just ask the designer to draw the UI, then I reproduce it on XML? So first thing is, probably this question was not was asked in the North America Hangout hours or the EMEA Hangout hours, because we didn't have this in APAC. But anyway, we will try to answer your question. So yes, there are some bugs with the GUI editor, but if you need rapid prototyping, we advise you to use some stencil tools available. There's one set of tools available with Android UI utils, which also includes the icon generator and stuff. There are some stencil tools there. So you can use these tools with your designers to come up with rapid prototypes for your applications. You can then convert to your application code. That's the only way we can advise you right now.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Anirudh. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of tricky to build a very nice UI with the tools we have, but again, you always have the option of going back to XML if you feel that you're losing control by using the UI editor. Okay, so next question is on the emulator's support for high resolution. So I'm going to take up that question. Does the emulator support high resolution and density from the newest devices, smartphones and tablets? So then after the question, there is a comment. When I configure the emulator with a high resolution and ICS target, the emulator just shows a black screen or hangs up. Okay. So first I'll answer the first part. So when you create an AVD, there is a default abstract density which is set. So for AVDs which are targeted for 4.0.4 or 4.0.3, the abstracted density is 240 dpi, and if you are creating a AVD for Honeycomb, which is 3.1 or 3.2, the abstracted density is around 160, and for the older AVDs it's around 240 again. So because tablets typically have a lower density, and you can also change the density by editing the AVD. So to answer your question, yes, you can abstract given density or change that density when you create an AVD. Now, why is this not happening in your particular AVD? It's difficult to answer that question without getting more information from you. In terms of what did you try to change the abstracted LCD density, or were you trying to change the screen size in terms of pixels? And if there is a way you can provide us that information, then we might be able to answer that in more detail. So Ankur, is there a channel where developers can come back and ask and provide more detail about the questions they've already posted?
What I'd suggest is either reach out to us on G+, any of us that have joined the Hangout, or just follow up in another moderated question for next week's Hangout, whatever suits the person.
Yeah. Maybe another follow-up question next week. In the meantime, you can either send your comments directly to me on my G+ account, or to Ankur, or to any of us. But the answer to the first part is yes, you can. There is abstracted LCD density which you can change to suit your requirement. So moving on to the next question, I'll let Roisuke take this up from Japan.
So the next question is not a question, but a suggestion. Please add entry to manifest file automatically for every new activity class created. I think this is an interesting suggestion, and that I understand your pain of that you have to basically manually enter manifests tag every time you create activity. Like the 10 times, 20 times, you pretty much type same thing 10 times, 20 times. So let me take this as a feature request for our tools team, and then let's see how it goes. Thank you for suggestion.
I would just like to add something. There is a site by the Android tools team. If you just search for Android tools project, that will be the first search result. We do have an issue tracker there, and the engineers are there. So if you want to directly follow up with the engineering team, and there's a request there in the issue tracker, you can do that too.
Yeah.
Good.
Cool. Thank you, Raisuke. Tony, you want to add something?
Yeah, so I'll take the next question. So the question was, thanks for answering my question last week. When I enabled GPU acceleration in the emulator just showed a black screen and didn't run. Is there a hardware requirement on the GPU acceleration? So I guess my question back to you would be, which graphic cards are you using, and also which platform are you on? So seems like something specific to your environment. I would suggest you to send either contact me on G+ so we can work offline to find out what kind of exactly the problem you have. So seems like it's pretty specific. So maybe you can send me a private G+ post. Look forward to that.
Okay, cool. Thanks. So the next question I'll try to answer. This is on storing the login credentials locally. Okay. For my app, I need user login each time, as it is deemed sensitive data. How do you suggest I store the auth data? Application context seems to be a bad way of storing it. Okay, of course, application context, if the app gets killed by process manager, your application context data is lost. So I think there are one or two approaches. The best approach is not to store the passwords directly locally. What you should do is you should become a OAuth provider on the server side, and you should store the OAuth access token on the client side. And the best way to store it is in shared preferences, so that even if your app is or activity is destroyed, and when it's created again, you can load that access token from the shared preferences, and so that you're already logged in, and you don't have to go through that flow again. I think that is a easy and sweet answer to this question. So next question, I'll hand it over to Anirudh.
Right. The question is, I'm having trouble with C2DM when the receiving phone is in sleep mode. Video from Google I/O suggests that we should implement a heartbeat mechanism. Does the latter mean implement something to wake up the phone and perform something in HTTP? So I think the heartbeat mechanism they're being talked is about to keep the connection alive if you have some processing going on. But you can periodically wake up the system using Alarm Manager. But we would just advise you not to be too greedy here or do that too often. Also, you don't need to perform an HTTP request to get the network, the C2DM notifications. It's just to wake up the system. Also, I think the second part, the heartbeat part, is if you actually have a non-trivial task, a long-running task, you would, when the intent broadcast system wakes up your application or sends a message to your application, what you want to do there is use the acquire a wake log to actually dispatch your processing to a service if it's a non-trivial long-running operation, and that's when you want to probably use HTTP keep alive.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Anirudh. Next question is for Tony.
Yeah, so the question here was, we built Android 4.0.3 tablets without Bluetooth module built-in. We want to use a Bluetooth USB adapter instead. We need Bluetooth installed in the system menu partition. So this is working on 2.3. Is it possible in Android 4? So I guess like these questions, since you are building your own hardware, I guess my understanding is in Android 4 we do support accessory. So USB's accessory API, definitely you can have your tablet as a USB host as well as a slave. And in terms of whether hardware-related issue, because this is a discussion hangout for discussing on API-related questions. we are not expert in hardware, so I would suggest you to go to there are a couple of discussion groups that you may be able to find answer. One of them would be Android-platforms, Google groups. Another one would be Android-porting. So most likely you can find some good answer from the through the community there. So thank you.
Okay, cool. So next question from Ankit Shah in India. It's on map support in fragments. Again, Tony, would you like to answer?
For fragments, so this is one of the very popular feature requests we have. We understand we currently don't have fragment support for maps, and currently we don't have any announcement, but our engineering team are aware of the issues and are looking into it. So so sorry for now.
Yeah, I think we keep getting this in every second hangout, and so it's a question which is very popular. So next question is on Android market for Indonesian programmers. Roysuke?
Okay. The question is, okay, from Indonesian programmer, when we can use it to make money? Because all now have solved the problem. Okay, so this question is about, okay, DIM, Nokia, Windows solved the problem, but the Indonesian programmer still doesn't have Google Play. The answer is, yeah, I understand you really feel frustrated about the lack of the paid application support and in-app billing support in Indonesia. And the only answer I can give right now is that we are always working on extending Google Play paid application and in-app billing support to more and more countries. And unfortunately, we don't have any specific timeline I can tell right now. But the please be aware that we are definitely working on that. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks Roysuke. Next question again from Indonesia. This looks more like a user feature request. Make a feature to back up our SMS messages to Gmail integrated with the Android messaging app and not a third-party app. Okay, this is not a developer question, but looks like a user feature request for the Gmail Android app. So what we'll do is we'll give this feedback to the specific team which is building this app, and it will be up to them and the PM to decide, and evaluate this feature. But thanks for giving this suggestion. And so I think we'll move on to the next question quickly. Over to you, Anirudh.
Okay. The question is, any plans of getting Android 4.0 phone Galaxy Nexus to Indian developers? It's been nearly 6 months now. So unfortunately, we do not know of any such plans. We're not aware. So maybe I think a good thing would be to follow up with Samsung India with their product or their website or with their various social channels to figure out their launch plans. We don't have any information there. Sorry about that.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Anirudh. Yeah, there was one press release which Samsung did around this. Maybe you want to check that. I don't remember the contents, but they had said something about this particular launch. But I think, yeah, Samsung India and their PR department would be the right channel to ask this question. Next question is on one of the legal matters, so I will hand it over to Ankur.
Thanks, Rajdeep. So the question is, according to the jury, and there's some references to there's a case going on between Oracle and Google, and basically, look, none of us on this call are lawyers. We're not supposed to talk about the litigation, so we don't have an answer for this. It's certainly outside of the scope of of this Hangout. So thanks for the question, but you'll probably need to find a different audience for it.
Yeah. Thanks, Ankur. The next question is again for you.
Yep. So the question is, how can I move all my Android apps to the SD card? Now, I think that this person is asking a developer question, but you could frame this question either way. So basically, from a developer's point of view, you can specify in your manifest file that your app can be moved to the SD card. There's basically a parameter that you can add. The other parameter you can add is you can set the default install location, and you can basically say, hey, always install to the SD card. So I guess that's how you can do it for your apps themselves. If you're looking at it from a user's point of view, look, developers have to enable the option to move to SD card. It's not something that you can blankly just go and say, move all my apps to the SD card. Now you might also ask, well, why is that not the default? Basically, SD cards, you can think of them as transient storage, because people can eject the SD card, switch it out with another SD card, or just not have an SD card in the device. So it's not something that developers should be assuming will always be present. You can run into some funny issues there as well, because if you've got an app that, for example, has a widget or has a service, it will not work. That widget basically won't work on the if the user adds it to the launcher. What will typically happen is that the user will be able to add that widget to the launcher, and next time they reboot their device, that widget will probably disappear, or you'll have some sort of error shown there. And that has to do with the boot order and how quickly the SD card can get mounted and so on and so forth. So look, we understand that move to SD card is a feature that you might find attractive. You have to be very careful how you use it though. So I would suggest try and sort of see if you can split your app up in some clever ways, such that you've got your core app is nice and small, and the data part of your app is maybe using our new extension APKs, so that we can separate out the where it's stored and so on.
Okay, thanks, Ankur. Next question is on Google Play, and Roisuke, do you want to take it? It's from Noida in India.
Okay, thank you, Rajdeep. And the question is, Google Play download through default web browser, HTC Sense, doesn't work on Wi-Fi proxy server. Do something about this. Oh, okay, this is probably not really question, probably more about feature requests about supporting Wi-Fi proxy server in easier fashion. And that thank you for your suggestion. And that I would like to mention that the Android team continues working on improving enterprise features of Android devices. For example, in Ice Cream Sandwich, Android 4.0, we have done a bunch of things so that you can use Android phone inside a corporate network. But there are certain steps you should follow in order that you can use your device inside the corporate network. But it's definitely becoming easier and easier. I would like to suggest that you would take a look into how you would be able to use your network, your private network with your Android device using some VPN configuration. And then you would be able to use your private Wi-Fi network together with your Android device. And otherwise, we also continue working on making it easier for usual consumers to configure networks like using proxy servers. But I understand that this is not always a simple process. So thank you for suggestion. And let us continue working on this. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Roisuke. We have tried to answer all the questions which were posted on moderator, and very soon we'll be sharing the video of this session. Ankur, would you like to add something?
Yeah, we actually have a couple of questions that have come in a little bit late. So let's answer those. We also have Al Sutton on the thread, who mentioned that he's posted a link saying that Samsung India said there is a definite no to Galaxy Nexus in India, and he's posted a link to an article. I'm assuming that article is accurate, but people can have a look. So we have two questions that have come through. One of them is from someone called Thomas, and I'm sorry, Thomas, if I mispronounced your name. The question is, and I guess Anirudh and Rajdeep, this one's for you, is what are the specifics of the Indian Play Store? I have an app that is very successful in Asia, but almost no sales in India. Is it due to translation, or is it due to the cost of the app?
Okay. So I'm assuming he's referring to the paid apps?
I assume so, because he's talking about the price of an app.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, see, different markets respond differently to paid apps, but we have not released any stats which are specific to a particular market. So we can't really comment on how paid apps are doing in India versus how they are doing it somewhere else. So you want to answer?
Yeah, I think it'd be nice if you could check your publisher stats and see like where your downloads are coming or where your installs are coming from. Is it just a paid app, or is it a freemium model, or do you see downloads for like your free app and then not so much for the paid apps? It would be interesting to see if you actually have users who are using a free app in India and not choosing to buy the paid app version. In that case, maybe you can work through a different model. Yeah.
Yeah, I would also add that this response isn't specific to India, but generally apps do vary in terms of how they perform in different markets. Different cultures, different religions, different languages, they have different tastes. So an app that might be high quality may be popular in, let's say, Japan, but not so popular in Australia because of the type of content it has, or just the style around it. So without knowing too much about what app you're referring to and what your target market is, it's really hard to comment. But I would have a look at just seeing whether there is anything in the way that app is presented, whether there is something that it's referring to that's something culturally sensitive, or otherwise, what differences may lie. And sometimes even translations. You asked the question about translation. It depends. I mean, generally, if it's an app that's written in English, English is a very dominant language in India. But obviously, you could still translate it and get a broader user base within India as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would also like to add that it depends on how various markets they respond to a paid app. So as Anirudh said, you might want to explore other options like freemium model, where you start with the free version and have paid add-ons. That model might work better in India as compared to some of the other APAC countries.
Yeah. And we also have one other question, and it's actually a really interesting question. Basically, Rasul on the thread is asking that if you have an app on the market that's kind of distributed or split up such that you've got like a main app and then you've got a bunch of sort of add-ons or plugins for that app, then the issue that he's seeing is that he's saying that main app needs to request every permission, whereas that permission might only be required for the plugin itself. Now, Rasul, that's a very interesting question. This is a topic that I've discussed with developers in the past, and there are ways to actually make it such that your main app does not require the permissions that your add-on does. So examples of that are basically if you can split your app up such that it's a standalone service, So I don't know, just to throw it out there, maybe you have an add-on that allows you to import contacts or export contacts. That add-on itself that deals with contacts, if you have that as like a service component, which you can then invoke from your main app using some, an API that you determine, you can ensure that your main app doesn't require the contact read and write permission. So it depends how you break it up, but there's certainly ways to achieve what you're after. Now, unfortunately, Rasul wasn't able to join us on the Hangout itself, so I don't know whether he's got any follow-up questions. I guess in the meantime, that's a wrap for today, right, Rajdeep?
Yeah. So thanks for posting all these questions. We have tried our best to answer them based on our knowledge. And if you have any additional questions, you can ask them in the next version of the Hangout, or you can also ping us offline if you have any specific discussion point around the questions you already asked. So I guess we can wrap up this version of the Dev Hangout for Android developers.
All right, thanks for joining, everyone. See you later.
Bye.